Hi, my name is Anna Martha Ayala, and I would like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I try to teach you all a little bit of astrology and also how to use the degree theory by Nikola Stojanovic. So in this video, I am going to try to relay how to interpret the best times to try to get pregnant. So that involves the moon and the solar return. So here are a couple of disclaimers. I will not issue any medical advice because I am not a doctor. I am not a physician. I am not a nurse. I'm not a nurse practitioner. I have nothing to do with the medical field. So this video will not be anything related to medicine. It's just how to use the astrology to try to get pregnant, the timing, the best aspects to have, and how to find them in the solar return. So having said that, this video is also for advanced astrology students. You're gonna need to know some astrology or a lot of astrology, I should say, up until how to do the solar return. I will try to be as detailed as possible so that most of you will follow along. So having said this, there are a couple of things that I do need to mention that should be givens, right? Number one, for women, as we get older, it's harder to get pregnant and it's harder to carry a pregnancy to full term. Number two, you should have a partner, a husband, a boyfriend, a partner that is considered seventh house material. And I'll explain that a little bit later. The third thing is that you need to be in good physical condition, and this is where you need to consult with your doctor because being pregnant takes a toll on your body, okay? And obviously the fertility issues, if you have any, God willing you don't, but if there are any fertility issues, then that's something that your physician, your OBGYN should be working with you. So in this video, I won't be discussing based on the natal chart, what is fertile and what is not fertile. That is not the subject of this video. This is just the timing of the best possibility to have when trying to get pregnant, right? Practicing having a baby. So Nikola, in his degree theory, he said that pregnancy, the eighth house rules pregnancy. It's not the fifth. The fifth house rules the children that you have, but the eighth house rules the first pregnancy. The 10th house rules the second pregnancy, and the 12th house rules the third pregnancy. Your firstborn child is ruled by the fifth house. Your second-born child is ruled by the seventh house. And your third born is ruled by the ninth house. So that is how he described the pregnancy and the kids. So I think by now a lot of you know that a woman's menstrual cycle is ruled by the moon, right? Because the moon changes signs. The cycle of the moon is 28 days. And that's what the cycle for women should be. So if your cycle is not in sync with the moon, that's the first thing that you need to work on with your physician. Secondly, going back to ancient times, right? Farmers use the moon to plant the seeds for the crops to grow at the best time. So they use the phases of the moon to try to achieve that. And I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but the tides, the tides, the low tide and the high tide are ruled by the moon because the moon rules water. So the moon impacts a lot of things, not just the women's fertility and pregnancy cycles. So having said this, what are the best times that you should try to practice having a baby? New moons in Taurus. Why? Because the moon is exalted in Taurus. A new moon in Cancer. Why? Because the moon rules Cancer. A moon in Scorpio. A new moon in Scorpio. Why? Because Scorpio is the natural ruler of the 8th house. And what do I mean by natural ruler? A natural chart is the one that starts with Aries in the 1st house. So every Aries rising person is or has what's called a natural chart. So your 1st house is Aries, the 2nd house is Taurus, the 3rd house is Gemini, the 4th house is Cancer, etc., etc. So the 8th house is Scorpio, the 12th house is Pisces. It's the natural order of the zodiac. So someone that is Gemini rising is going to have Gemini in the 1st house, Cancer in the 2nd, Leo in the 3rd, and so on and so forth. So their 8th house won't be Scorpio. So the natural ruler of the 8th house is Scorpio. And a new moon in that area would be good for timing because the moon is in fall in Scorpio. Why? Because it's exalted in Taurus, and Scorpio is the opposite of Taurus. It's an opposition. So that's why the moon is at fall in Scorpio. But for timing purposes, it's great. No problem. The other one is a moon in Sag. Why? Because the ruler of that moon is Jupiter. And as we all know, Jupiter is the benefic, right? The major benefic. The other one is Venus. But for babies, it's Jupiter. Now, moons in Capricorn and Aquarius, as far as timing, is not so good. Why? Because they're ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the old ruler of Aquarius. The new ruler is Uranus. And as we all know, Uranus is not predictable. You cannot predict Uranus. What you think is going to happen doesn't happen, and something else just pops up out of the blue. So Capricorn, if the ruler of the moon is Cancer, and then in Capricorn, the moon is at its detriment. Okay, so not a good timing technique for practicing having a baby. So again, for new moons, you wait until the 5th day after the new moon. Why? Because in ancient astrology, in the dark moon, which is what nowadays in the calendar it says new moon, but when you look in the sky, it's dark. There is not even a little sliver of the moon. So typically the new moon in ancient astrology is when you see the first sliver of the moon. So for timing purposes, it's about the 5th day on the calendar, right? Based on that black moon. So we plant the seeds on the 5th day. Also, for your specific chart, the ruler of your 8th house. And I'm going to, well, I'll show the chart later. Other times, Jupiter and Taurus, which is now, right? May 17, 2023 to May 25th, 2024. Jupiter in Cancer. June 10th, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Now, obviously, you don't have to wait 12 years to try to have a baby if you don't make it in this cycle. Other cycles you can use is Jupiter in Leo, which is the natural ruler of the fifth house. And you can use Jupiter in Sag, which is, again, a benefic, right? So when Jupiter is in these signs, it's a good time to try to get pregnant. Having said this, with Pluto going into Aquarius, more people will be leaving the earth than people coming to the earth, if you get my drift. Okay, so that cycle in and of itself is not good for the population. There's going to be a natural decrease in the population of the earth. So let me bring up the natal chart. Let me see here, so that way I can illustrate better for people that are not that familiar with astrology or trying to follow, for those students that are beginners and want to learn a little more. So new moons in your fifth house, the cusp of your fifth house. I pulled up this chart today, July 27th at 8:15 a.m. This person's a double Leo, 22nd degree, which is, Capricorn degree. I didn't do this on purpose. I just picked this randomly. So, just for illustrative purposes. Anyway, the fifth house for this person born today in Miami at 8:15 starts in Sag, which happens to coincide with one of the examples that I gave of the moon being in Sagittarius. However, if Libra would have been here in the fifth house, then it's a new moon in Libra where this person should have sex, practice having a baby to get pregnant. The cusp of the eighth house, which is this line, starts in Pisces. So a new moon in Pisces would be great to try to have, to try to get pregnant. Now, having said this, obviously new moons are like the best energy, right? Because it's new, but the cycle of the moon is every 28 days. So if you have a regular moon in any of these signs, like Taurus, Cancer, Scorpio, Sag, your fifth house ruler here, which happens to be Sag, or your eighth house ruler, which in this case is Pisces, you can also practice, right? You're not going to have sex just 4 or 5 times a year. It's not going to work for your partner, or you for that matter. So Jupiter and the moon are the ones that will help facilitate the pregnancy. So now I'm going to switch to the solar return, which is this. This person that was born today, 20 years from now, decided to have the birthday in Las Vegas. Why not? However, their rising sign in this solar return is Gemini. In their natal chart is Leo. They're a double Leo. For solar return purposes, Nicola had said that if you had the same rising sign, the same ascendant in the solar return as in the natal chart, then that would be a great year for you. It would be a significant year for you. However, Gemini, this solar return chart with Gemini is opened on the 11th house of the solar chart. So for it to be a good solar return for pregnancy, it should be open in Pisces, which is the 8th house here. Okay. Now for solar returns, he always used the current location of where you're going to be spending your birthday. So your birthday can be a day before or a day after. And then instead of 8:15, it's going to be at 2:20 a.m. in Las Vegas, 20 years from now. So it could be a different day, it could be a different time, and that is your solar return. You need to be at that designated place when it's your birthday, period, according to the solar return. So the other thing he said is that if you had repetitions of planets that are the same in your natal chart as it is in your solar return, that will also be a significant, wherever that house, wherever those planets are that are repeated, will also be a significant year for you. So for example, if in your natal chart, you had the moon here instead of Neptune, and then you had the moon on the solar return, you had it in the 8th chart, that is also a good time to try to have a baby. So for the solar return, current location where you're at, because you're going to use a different location to see if you can make the planets fall into the 8th house. And that's where you're going to spend your birthday if you want to try to get pregnant, to have astrology help you get pregnant. So current location, repetition of planets in the same house. The solar return ascendant is opened in the natal 8th house, which is that Pisces in the natal chart. The solar return ascendant, this sign, should be Scorpio. Why? Because it's the natural ruler of the 8th house in a natural chart. It rules pregnancy. The ascendant of the solar return chart is in the 8th house, meaning that Gemini is ruled by Mercury. This Mercury needs to be in this 8th house. That is also a good year to try, for you to try to get pregnant. The solar return ascendant is in your natal 8th house. Or the solar return ascendant in the chart is at your natal Pluto. So, for example, if this, again, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. So if you had a natal Mercury in the 8th house, then you're good. Or the same thing with Pluto. If in the solar return you have a stellium of planets in the 8th house, stellium is described as 3 or more planets in the 8th house. So the concentration is on the 8th house. That would be a wonderful year to try to get pregnant. Now, the preference is for the moon to be part of the 8th house stellium. Again, the moon is the fertility, the main focus. Now, if you can get the moon to be aspected by Jupiter or by the sun, awesome. For example, you have the moon here, and then you have Jupiter in the 6th house. So Jupiter would be protecting your health, and maybe your sun in the 10th house. So it's sextiling the moon, and the moon is in Taurus. That would be amazing. So you have to try to maneuver the solar return so all of these things go in. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, but it improves your chances of getting pregnant, because it's difficult to find a place where all these things fit, right? And but it can be done, it can be done. So If you have repeated planets in the solar return chart here in the 8th house, as you do in the natal 8th house, that's also a significator of pregnancy. When you have the ruler of the natal 5th house in the solar return 5th house, that is also a significator of, you having a baby. And lastly, when you have the moon at the degree of the 8th house cusp. So in this case, in the solar return, this moon, which is at 8 degrees, which is not the best. Let's see, it has to be the 8th house here. The cusp starts at 18 degrees, because if the 2nd house starts at 18 degrees, the 8th house also starts at the 18th degree, which is also not a good degree. But I'm saying, like, in theory, if you have the moon at the degree of the 8th house cusp, or in Scorpio, or the moon at the degree, or in Scorpio as well, you also have good chances of getting pregnant that year. So basically, as far as timing, that's the best timing for you to try to have a baby. I know that this video was more complex and complicated for those of you that don't have, that are starting out in astrology, but try to find, just review it a few times and try to follow between the solar return chart and the natal chart, or maybe, just take a couple of classes, or just review your basic skills and then try to follow, and you'll see you'll get it. It's not impossible. It just takes time and practice to do it. So I hope that this video has been good for all of you to understand how astrology and the degree theory can help you get pregnant. It all goes back to the natal promise. Obviously, if it's not promised in your natal chart, then it won't happen. Having said that, there are a lot of grandmas and aunties that have raised children. There are a lot of people that adopt children, because there's a lot of kids in this world that need good parents, so that you could also consider that route. And I'm sure you've heard that before, and I understand that you want to have your own child. So I hope that this video can give you even better chances of accomplishing that. I wish you all the best, many blessings, and good luck. And I hope to hear that you all were successful in having a baby. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you know of someone that's trying to get pregnant or might benefit from any of my videos, please send them the link. And subscribe to the channel to help it grow. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and all the best to you.